if you're here for the Perfect Your Pitch workshop, you're in the right place. If not, there's still time to leave. You can escape. But I hope you do join us for a fun-filled hour and a half or so. The good news is that very shortly here, I'm going to turn the mic over to Nick Soman of LikeBright. You'll get a real live example that I hope will inspire you to believe that you can do a pitch in not just 10 minutes, but actually pull it off under 7 minutes. So hopefully we can get started in just a moment here. Yeah? I think we good? Everybody, how's the audio and the visual? Can you see? Can you hear? Just nod if you can't hear me, right? Yeah, okay. All right, I think we're good. So why don't we go ahead and get the show on the road. I am Rebecca Lovell. I am the Chief Business Officer at the hottest and only Seattle-based technology news site and community. Delighted to be back here with you today. What we're going to do, and I'll get into my own agenda in a few minutes, is start you off, like I said, with a live example of a real investor pitch that was just unveiled to the world at Techstars about a week ago. Then I will work with you on an overall outline of elements of a pitch that I've seen to be successful over the years in working with investors. I will pepper that brief presentation with live examples from real presentations, and then, you've been warned, I'm going to put you to work. So what you'll end up doing within your tables is pairing off and trying to tighten up your tagline. We'll then have every table vote on their favorite tagline, and the winner of that will come up and pitch for the entire group. The person who wins that honor will get to present their 60-second pitch at EU Idol at the end of the day, where we'll be armed with cocktails. So don't worry, it's a very friendly audience. If this is the first time you're thinking about getting up and pitching your business to a crowd, this is the crowd to do it in. So, your slides are ready? Let me just go ahead and very quickly introduce my dear friend and colleague, Nick Soman. Thank you. Warm NWEN welcome for Nick here. Fantastic. So Nick is one of the co-founders of LikeBright, and I'm not going to steal his thunder when it comes to talking about what the company does, but I have to say that his vision and his mission resonated with me the very first time I met him. I can tell you that I have been saying for years that the best wing man is a wing woman when it comes to relationships. So Nick is going to tell you a little bit more about that. Again, please welcome my friend and soon to be yours, Nick Soman. Take it away.
Thanks, Rebecca. And they brought me in, and I assume they brought me in because I'm talking about something funny and interesting, and it's dating. And so hopefully this won't be boring. I can't really promise much more than that, but that's where we are. Thanks for having me in today. I'm Nick from LikeBright, and before we get started, let me ask all of you a question. Who here in this room has ever wanted to go on a date? Hi, Buzz. I think that's all of us. And it's a pretty motivating feeling, right? But did you know that only 4% of American singles have paid for online dating? Think about it. It's a $2 billion market in this country alone. But 96% of singles aren't paying. Well, why? Well, it's because in the dating market, women are the key customer. And no one has built a dating product that women love. So today I'm going to tell you how my co-founders Ron, Sonia, and I built LikeBright to engage the other 96% of women by putting women first. And I'm going to tell you why you should invest in LikeBright. We understand what makes dating hard for women. We've built a product that makes it easier, and we're the right team to get the job done. And I have to run my own slides today, but that's okay. So has this ever happened to you? This has happened to me a lot. And it's a big problem with dating. Women get a lot of attention, but they need a better way to identify great guys. And it turns out this problem is even bigger online, and I know this because we've spoken with more than 1,000 26 to 32-year-old single women. And most of them told us they prefer to meet guys the old-fashioned way, through referrals from people they trust. So at LikeBright, what we're doing is we're building a lightweight vouching layer on Facebook to help women identify great guys. We don't think of ourselves as a dating site, but we do make dating much easier. We give women a simple, social, and safe way to engage about guys online, just like they do offline. They can vouch for the great guys they know, and they can discover great guys that other women have vouched for. Now, you may find this hard to believe, but I was single for most of my life before a female friend introduced me to my girlfriend, and she's way, way out of my league. So I can tell you that when a woman vouches for a guy, it's one of the most powerful social signals around. She's not just saying he's pretty good. She's putting herself on the line a little bit and saying he's great. And vouching is powerful in a lot of contexts, but we wanted to build a product that women love, so we've started with women vouching for men. So let me show you how it works, and I'll drive just to get to. I got a product demo for you guys, which is always the scary part of any pitch. Hopefully it works. Yeah, feeling good. So you can see how a woman experience is LikeBright because I've borrowed my friend Anna's account. If I can get this working. We may have technical difficulties that'll preclude the actual pitch, so hold on just a sec, one more shot. That looks better. Looks like this computer doesn't play video. I can show you guys afterward if you'd like to see it, a video of how it works. This is just a 45-second part of the pitch anyway, so I can push through. But the very basic fundamentals, I would show you here that she would go online, and the first thing a woman would see is all of her male friends on Facebook, along with a lot of other great guys that her friends have vouched for. Within a couple of clicks, she can vouch for any of these guys, and they'll get a really flattering email notification, along with a LikeBright page of their own. And then if she wants to click in to see what women think about any of these guys, she can see which women have vouched for guys. She can see if they think that the guys are funny or smart or responsible or caring or cute. Or she can ask a public or an anonymous question and get answers from the guy and their real-life female friends. And since we validate identities via Facebook, we can keep the conversation fair. So this is really an information layer to help women get better information on guys. And if Anna just doesn't have time for another destination site in her life, she can actually use LikeBright without ever leaving Facebook. So you guys can get a sense of sort of what it looks like there. And the site is live. So keep going. So when Anna vouches for guys, we acquire customers cost effectively. And in the dating space, one of the interesting challenges is customer acquisition. And Match pays up to $100 to Google AdWords to buy customers. But instead, we just simply let their female friends vouch them in. And we can monetize using a variant of the proven subscription model in the dating space. And so the plan is to let people engage with their friends on our site for free, or pay to discover and engage with people outside of their networks. Now, our competitors are printing money with a somewhat similar revenue model, despite the fact that 2 out of 3 users of existing dating sites never even go on a date. So I see this as a market that's really ripe for disruption with a product that women love. And Seattle is a great place to start. Within 25 miles of Seattle, there are nearly 100 times as many women in our target demographic on Facebook than on Match. Facebook targeting means that once we hit critical mass in Seattle, we can expand outwardly to any geography or demographic where women want a better way to find great guys. But it all starts here. So we recently, after a few weeks of product development, launched our first customer acquisition experiment to test the vouch mechanism. We ran a contest to find the best guys in Seattle according to women. And our contest yielded over 500 signups. Those people vouched in an incremental 150 guys. And all in all, 70% of signups came for women, which blows away the demographics of other dating sites. And less than 10 guys total opted out. So our product is really working. And best of all, when the contest was over, our growth rates continued. Now, in the spirit of LikeBright, I'll let the women tell you what they think. Seattle native Tasha R. thinks that we take the discomfort out of dating sites. GeekWire's Monica Guzman thinks that we can supercharge the dating space by letting women recommend great guys. And LikeBright is working for guys, too. So on the next slide, you'll see this is Kelly Towell. Kelly has 21 vouches on LikeBright already. I'm glad you guys are having a chance to see the product a little bit. Sorry for the video demo. And his friends describe him as caring, kind, big-hearted Southern gentleman. And 2 of them say he's the funniest guy that they've ever met. Now, the guys in the room know this is the kind of press that guys would kill for. But Kelly didn't have to do anything to get this. He didn't even build the profile. His friends built it for him. All he had to do was be himself. So finally, we're the right team to get the job done. In experiences he honed as a financial analyst, Ron can use qualitative and quantitative methods and analytics to keep our users safe and secure. Sonia handles our social media efforts, and in addition to being in our target market herself, she's learned to keep the conversation going as a lifestyle columnist for the Detroit News. And I learned the power of a world-changing vision as a product manager on the Amazon Kindle. All 3 of us have worked together for 3 years before quitting our jobs to build LikeBright. So Facebook gives you the tools to connect and share with the people in your life, not with their cute single friends. At LikeBright, we're giving you the tools to do both. So today we're raising $600,000. That's just over half a penny for every single American waiting for a revolution in dating. Come on, that's good. And here's why you should invest in LikeBright. We've got a huge market opportunity. We've got a live product with engaged users. We've got a great picture of John Cusack. And we've got a passionate and experienced team. So if you want to help us engage with the other 96% of singles by putting women first, please come talk to LikeBright. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick. So, all of that in seriously like 7 minutes flat. So for those of you skeptics out there, you can do it. You can weave in all of the elements of a successful pitch in practically no time. So let me just get right into it with you. I want to give you some tools so you can do the exact same thing that Nick did with your business. All right. Actually, that is a great piece of advice. Kind of a Murphy's Law about that. That which can go wrong will. All right. So we are ahead of the game. I gave you a little bit of a sneak preview to the agenda. Did everybody who wanted handouts get them? All right. Caitlin's coming around with that. Thank you, Caitlin. Okay, so this is our plan of attack. We're just a couple minutes behind, but we'll make it up in the air. I am going to very quickly go through some elements of what I found over the past several years of coaching and screening hundreds and hundreds of companies. These tend to be the elements that investors are looking for. Then I'm going to put you guys to work, and for those of you who want that opportunity, or 60 seconds of fame in front of a panel of media judges and a cocktail-drinking crowd, this is your chance. So let's get into it. I will say this, that although I am going to really try to kind of push through this overview, if you've got a burning question and you think it's something that other people also care about, jump in. I don't consider it an interruption. I really want to make this as interactive as possible. This is a workshop, so don't be shy. All right, so what is the whole point of the investor pitch? I do like to think of it as a first date, kind of keeping with the metaphor of the day, and I don't know if that makes you more or less nervous about it, but what is the goal of a first date, ladies and gentlemen? There it is. Buzz knows very well. All you want to get is a second date. So what you're trying to do in this 5 or 8 or 10 minute period of time is capture their attention, whet their appetite, have coffee with them, and you want to go to dinner on the next date, I think, right, Buzz? Yeah, that's the goal. Okay, so I just want to start off with a few high-level tips, things that tend to work well in a presentation. If you've got, whether you have 5 or 10 minutes to pitch, if you don't get their attention in the first 30 seconds, it's really hard to get it back. So that is why later today we're going to focus on that mission-critical tagline, that kind of opening elevator pitch. You really need to explain what you do, for whom and how, and do it with passion and in a compelling way to get them to keep listening to you. One thing that I will caution against, particularly as you're just getting started in presentations, is it's very tempting to have text-heavy slides. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm breaking a lot of my own rules today because I kind of designed this presentation to be a leave behind for you. So you have something to keep and to reference after EU is over. But generally speaking, the best investor pitches out there really treat the PowerPoint presentation as a visual aid. Right? So if you have text-heavy slides, the temptation of your audience will be just to read them, and you will read them as well. And then you're missing out on the primary opportunity, which is to personally connect with everybody that you can in your audience. You're developing, the beginning of a relationship here. So try to avoid doing what I'm doing today, but I did do it with some intent. The other thing, too, is one of my favorite rules from Guy Kawasaki is the 10-20-30 rule. So no more than 10 minutes, no more than 20 slides, and the font should be no smaller than 30 points. Or in some cases, you can just take the age of the oldest person in the room and divide that by 2. So don't go any smaller than that, or you're going to create sort of an eye chart, eye doctor kind of nightmare. So try to keep the font big. And remember that these slides are just supposed to illustrate what you're saying. You want people to pay attention to you. I'll say this at a few points throughout the presentation here, but establishing trust and rapport and credibility is so important, and it's really easy to lose it. So don't try to spin or obfuscate or exaggerate your progress. Tell it like it is, and at the very least, you'll have a good, honest dialogue and a prelude to a relationship. So then just kind of speech making 101, do exactly what Nick did there. Tell them what you're going to tell them. So you kind of go over what your agenda is, tell them, and then finish by telling them what you told them. Sounds basic, but it really does help that information stick. And another thing that I've learned over the years too is that for any given slide, no matter how smart your audience is, we're probably only going to take away one key point. So just ask yourself with every slide that you put together, so what? What is the key takeaway that they should be gleaning from this slide? And if nothing else, remember that there should be one key takeaway from every slide. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next one. All right. So if you're dealing with investors, whether they are angel investors, maybe even friends and family or venture capitalists, there's any number of other things they can do with their time and their money. So you've got to cut through the clutter. You need to be compelling, really focus on the value proposition. And perhaps it's an occupational hazard of the really smart perfectionists in this town, but I've seen so many business plans where it's a solution looking for a problem. Right? Like you've written this really elegant piece of code and you've just fallen in love with it. But I'm here to tell you that if there's not a market of people who are willing and able to pay for your product or your service, you don't have a business. You've got perhaps a science experiment. So just keep kicking the tires, making sure that there is a real problem that you're trying to solve. And then ask yourself, sort of, what is the order of magnitude or impact that your company can have? Are you solving just kind of a headache or an annoyance, or is it a serious migraine? Anything you can do to quantify the pain in the marketplace and show, if you will, kind of return on investment to your customer can only help you. If you get nothing else from this slide, it'll be that you really need to tell a story and focus on the customer pain. The one-sentence litmus test is something that you guys are going to be working on later today. But I generally find that you want to limit that tagline to 30 words or less. That's kind of a long, compound sentence. Beyond that, you start sort of speaking in paragraphs and the eyes kind of start glazing over. So try to keep it short. And we'll talk a little bit more later about the elements of a really good opener. All right, so I'm going to very quickly move off this slide because proof's in the pudding here. A picture is worth 1,000 words. My favorite presentations, and I just sat through 18 of them judging a startup weekend that just finished up on Sunday, they all tell a story. Okay, so I'm not sure what businesses each of you are in, but it's possible that the investors that you're talking to are not your target market. So your job is to put them in the mindset of your customer and help them in a really personal way understand the pain that you're solving. And I found there's no better way to do that than to tell a story. Now, sometimes there's a tendency to educate. You know your space and your technology better than anybody, and you just want to share that knowledge with the world. I would caution against that. Educating is not terribly entertaining, and study after study says that storytelling is not just entertaining, but educational in and of itself. So let's get into it. Do we have any dog owners in the house? Yeah, I'm more of a cat person myself. But apparently, when you bring home a dog from the breeder or the kennel, they often come in a crate, such as you'll see here. You've worked hard to decorate your home, and this kind of eyesore is obviously detracting from your decor. So the solution to this problem is called Den House. So here's Amber. It's actually Sarah's pet, and she's in this lovely functional piece of furniture that blends with the decor of your home. Now, I did tell a little bit of a story about that, but frankly, I could have just said before, after, and you'd already be there. That is the power of pictures and the power of storytelling. Even if you don't own a dog, you're going to understand the customer pain, and here's a demonstrated customer solution. All right, so I talked a little bit about the importance of integrity and telling the truth. Bottom line, investors need to know what they're investing in. So be really honest and forthcoming about the status of product development and exactly what you've done as a company. What they really want to do in their investment decisions is look to maximize their opportunity and minimize their risk. And when they write you a check, you are becoming a steward of their money. And they want to know, are you going to be a responsible steward of their hard-earned cash or their funds cash? So one way you can get to that is say, we've been in business for 6 months, and I've personally invested $30,000. I'm raising $100,000, and that's going to last me another 10 months. So what investors do, it's not terribly complicated, but from the get-go, they're doing this kind of back-of-the-napkin math or calculation where it says, all right, they've burned through $30,000 of cash in 6 months. They're spending about $5,000 a month, and look at everything they've done. They are efficient. They are scrappy. They are committed because they put their own money into the business. These are the kinds of things that you should start sharing when it comes to traction. You hear that word traction a lot in the marketplace, but really it's progress and achievements. Focus on milestones. I will never forget this pitch I heard when I was at the Alliance of Angels, where this guy was talking about how he'd just outsourced some software development. Then he talks about having 20 customers. We're like, how do you have 20 customers when you don't have a product? And he said, well, actually, I've got 20 people who promised to be beta testers when we have a product. And it may well be, in fact it is still today, a business that's doing just fine. But we lost all the trust that we had in this presenter. So tell the truth. Just be really clear and transparent about exactly what you've done as a company. So talk about when you're established, what you've accomplished as a business. And here's just a really quick example. This is one of the finalists in a recent First Look forum here at NWEN, Maria Zhang, an incredibly talented engineer. She had just a month prior to presenting her company, launched it at South by Southwest, got some great accolades there. So only a month in, she won some awards. She had a live product. Her talk track, I'll tell you, was much better than mine. But if you can observe anything from this slide, is that she used the slide and the logos just as a visual aid while she was speaking very specifically to the traction that she'd accomplished in a very short time. I do highly encourage the use of logos and referenceable customers, as long as it's proper. Because what happens really is kind of a co-branding, if you will, whether it's an advisor that you're working with or winning a consumer prize at South by Southwest, and that space is kind of a big deal. So you get this sort of halo effect around the people that you affiliate with. So whether it's when it comes to traction or the pedigree of your teammates, I can tell you that those kinds of affiliations really go a long way. All right, competitive landscape. I got to tell you, this is probably one of the two slides that entrepreneurs struggle with the most. Probably the worst thing that I can hear is, great news, we have no competition. So what do you guys think that means? No market? No research? Right, yeah. So either there is no market or they have no idea what's going on in their marketplace. Both are bad things. Some variation in those themes is what tends to be the case. I would encourage you to think somewhat creatively and holistically about competition. Competition could be an Excel spreadsheet or pencil and paper or doing nothing. For Southwest Airlines, for example, their competition isn't just other airlines, but if you're familiar with their business model, they do these little short hops. So they could be competing with, who else? Yeah, cars, trains, video conferencing even, if it's for a business flight. So they really had to think much more broadly about competition when it came to how they positioned their product, how they priced it. So be that creative. And remember that it's an opportunity to show that you know the market like the back of your hand, and it's a way to remind your audience about what differentiates you from the competition. So I think we've got a couple quick examples in here. All right, so this is an older entrant in NWEN's First Look Forum, a company that is now called Cadence Biomedical. This slide is even just a little bit too busy, but basically this is a company whose value proposition is to get people out of wheelchairs and walking again. Talk about a compelling vision. So that's great. Over the centuries, there have been any number of alternatives or competitors to this technology, which essentially kind of leverages a rubber band and helps people kind of walk again in a comfortable way. So you could use a walker, you could use a wheelchair, you could use a really expensive, cool robotic suit. But the point here is that Brian, the CEO, identified the top areas or criteria along which his customers would make decisions, and he rated different categories of competitors in each of those areas to show that his solution was the most cost-effective, comfortable solution available that would be available in the marketplace. So kind of a classic matrix here, but it shows that if you've got tons of competitors, feel free to just put them in categories. He's not going to name every walker on the market, but this is a really great way to go, I think, when there are several criteria along which those decisions are being made. Let's see if I have another example. Yeah, and this is more, how many of you are in kind of consumer products at all? Yeah. I guess I found in the consumer product space that it's really brand and positioning that tends to be the most sustainable competitive advantage. So this is a really classic kind of branding or marketing tool that's known as a positioning grid. So you talk about let me just tell you a little bit about this business. So Little Borrowed Dress fixes what I would call the 27 dresses problem. If any of you have been in as many weddings as I have and have a closet full of taffeta, this solves your problem by letting you rent really lovely, flattering dresses for a reasonable price. So where this company, Little Borrowed Dress, not surprisingly in the upper left-hand corner where everybody wants to be, is cost-effective, so it's a good value yet high fashion. And so when Corey presented her deal, she sort of went through each quadrant to explain sort of what kind of psychographic they occupy, right? What's the mindset of the customer, not just the demographic. And there she is for people who are kind of focused on value and quality at the same time. And Caitlin actually modeled these at First Look Forum, and they are stunning, I can tell you. All right, so we're kind of moving down the pike here. Market opportunity. This is a tough one as well. Of the two slides I think are the most challenging, competition and quantifying and describing the market those are tough problems to solve. So I will never forget a moment that's probably 5 years ago now. Another consumer products company, came in and said, all right, great news. Our target market is 99% of the U.S. population. So all I have to do is get 0.00001% of the market, and we're good to go. So lots of problems with that statement. It turns out that's not really how sales work. It's not a solve for X equation. You have to get out there and market your product. But we tried to, peel back the onion on this a little bit, and it turns out that it was a snack food company, and 99% of the U.S. population snacks. But what was more interesting about her business is that it was a low-fat, organic, kosher snack food. So that presented some interesting opportunities and really spoke to where would you buy a product like that? Low-fat, kosher, organic? Whole Foods, right? PCC. So when you really understand what we call the addressable market, right? The lowest hanging fruit, the subset of that overall target market, not only does that help you quantify the market opportunity, but it starts to suggest distribution channels and go-to-market strategy, and it just sets up the rest of the story in a much cleaner way. And I can tell you in my experience that when it comes to market share and those magical financial projections we'll talk about in a minute, much more interesting to say, we're going to go out and capture 5% of this kind of reasonable size market than some tiny fraction of a percent of the whole market. So focus on that lowest hanging fruit and try to drill down to the real addressable market within that. Okay, so kind of carrying on the Little Borrowed Dress theme, it turns out for somebody who cares about value and cares about quality, they're kind of middle of the road pricing. I think it was like a $75 rental. So there certainly are offerings out there where you can buy a $75 dress. That's not so much the market. There are your bridezillas who are going to manage to the nth degree of detail every aspect of their wedding. That's not so much the market either. So in talking about the market opportunity, it's that mid-market, the non-bridezillas, the people who still want to have a high-quality event. And as Corey kind of spoke to this slide, which is, frankly, is a little bit of hand-waving, what you can see is, yep, there's a big market. And how are we going to get there? Well, what you need to do is win the hearts and minds of these brides, knowing that there are 3 or 4 people in a bridal party. You can sort of calculate what a customer is worth, and you figure out where do these brides hang out. Well, their grooms might be going to a tux rental shop, so maybe there's some partnership opportunities there. There's bridal shows that kind of hit on a yearly cycle. When you understand the market that you're addressing, it really sets up the story for how you're going to start to penetrate that market. So go-to-market strategy here is another actually Startup Weekend graduate, Founder Institute graduate, and First Look Forum graduate. This company has been highly mentored here in Seattle. But they really had an opportunity for people to have secure real-time communications within long-distance relationships. So the CEO actually was in such a relationship. Her fiance was deployed in Iraq, and so she thought, it's really hard to win, again, the hearts and minds of one couple at a time. So what you want to do when you're talking about your go-to-market strategy is how do you solve that one-to-many challenge? Think about channels. Think about associations, organizations, places, times, events where these people are going to congregate. And one of the early, partnerships she was seeking was through the Armed Services and also through an institute that focuses on successful relationships and love. So a great opportunity as you spell out the market is to take the next step and say, and here's how we think we're going to get there. Another opportunity for transparency. Please do not overstate the nature of your relationships. Big difference between they're in my sales pipeline versus we've got a letter of intent versus we've got an exclusive distribution contract through them. So again, transparency. But at least you can, no matter what stage of the business you're in, talk about what the world could look like and how you can grow your company, not in some sort of long, slow curve, but in leaps and bounds or in a step function towards that exponential growth that every investor is looking for. All right. So, do we have any other Seattle natives in the house or grunge fans from the 90s? Right on. You may or may not recognize this picture of it. Kind of a great short-lived band. And I'll tell you the reason I put that one in there. When it comes to team, you sincerely hope that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And when I introduced Nick and his colleagues at the Techstars demo event, the fact that they had worked together for 3 years, executed successfully on projects before, 2 of them happened to know each other for about 28 years. They were a sibling duo, but they know how to get stuff done as a team. And sometimes what happens when you get a bunch of rock stars together or a bunch of type A personalities or prima donnas, they just can't execute. That's what you're trying to do when you're putting together your team, when you're describing it to investors. It's all about execution. Of the many risks that we think about in investment, whether it's technology risk or market risk or imitation risk, execution risk is huge. And this is one of the top, if not the top reason that the investors that I've worked with over the years do a deal. They've got to like you. They've got to believe that you can lead, that you've got some domain expertise and kind of know what you're doing, and that, again, that you gel as a group. This group happens to be Temple of the Dog. So great, one album. They couldn't really make it happen as a team, and they went by the wayside. One of my favorite expressions from a now recovering attorney named Eric Custer is, I've got a million ideas, and I'll sell you any one of them for $5. And I know the IP folks in the room aren't going to want to hear that, but that was kind of sorry, Aaron, but that's kind of an exaggerated way of saying that it really just comes down to getting stuff done. So whether you've gone to school together, you've worked together in another company, you've done another startup together, that goes a long way. I do remember sort of a 2-person team in the sort of search engine healthcare space that really did have a great deal of domain expertise. The COO and co-founder had led a very similar company to an acquisition. It's like on paper they look great, but we saw the 2 of these guys pitching together and they just didn't click. And that sounds maybe a little subjective or emotional, but you have to kind of deal with the whole person when you're pitching your business. And we were kind of right and wrong. We were right in that about 3 months later, the COO went his own way. But 12 months after that, the company was acquired. So we missed out on a little exit opportunity. But, nobody makes good bets all the time. But personalities and emotions come into play, especially most of these investments are long-term relationships, whether it's an angel investment that's 3 to 5 to 7 years, or venture capital investment that is 9 to 10 years, or friends and family investment where you've got to face that person at Thanksgiving every year. You're gonna be spending a lot of time with the investors, and they need to know and trust your management team. So I can't emphasize that enough. All right, so here's just one fun example from a company called MeVine, where I really just like that you kind of got the sense of the personality of the folks on the team. It's sort of a social planning tool is the space that they're in. So Paul, who is the CEO, will do a much better job than I did of sort of describing each of their backgrounds. One thing I like about this slide is that, you know, he talked about how he wrote the Android app for One Bus Away, which is just an incredibly successful technology spun out of the University of Washington. So he's got some street cred. So he could sort of use that, you know, talk about street cred through logos of the other companies they'd worked for. And then he got a sense of the company culture on this slide. So I thought that was sort of a fun use of pictures. All right, we're getting close here, folks. So if you believe that there is a market out there and a really compelling value proposition, you've got the team to do it. If I heard one question more than any other at Startup Weekend just a couple days ago, it's how do you make money? Now, let me take a little bit of the fear out of this for you. Anytime you see financial projections, you know only one thing about them. They will be wrong. They just won't be right. You're going to miss them. You're going to blow them away. I mean, it's anybody's best guess. And your revenue model and your business model could change any number of times over the years. But probably my favorite phrase is an angel investor, Chris DeVore from Founders Co-op, said, he invests in entrepreneurs that can smell money. Like you just know that there's some way that you can monetize your business. And you just need to think through that. Know that it can change, but put something to paper here. Talk about, you know, what are the opportunities that can drive revenue within your business, whether it's a subscription model for membership, whether you're selling ads or sponsorships, whether you're in a more traditional business where you're selling goods and services, you want to be talking about product margins. But you at least need to show them what kind of critical thinking you've done about it. If you're in a business-to-business kind of industry, really great opportunity to talk about, here's what we've learned from our customers. You know, they make capital purchase decisions like this once a year, and they make them in September, and I have to start with the IT manager and get approval from the CFO. Show them that you understand, you know, how, what it takes to monetize your business. And there are industry standards out there. Most investors invest in businesses they understand and tend to stay kind of within an industry. So if you are trying to sell goods, you know, if you have an e-commerce business, I can tell you there's a very specific grid that Amazon affiliates use that ranges between 2 and 8% commission, as it were, based on the product that you're in and based on your volume of sales. And so if you're coming into an investor pitch saying you're going to make 15%, investors who are in the know will think better of that. So do your homework. Talk to real customers. There are models out there that you can at least use to get started, and give yourself a little bit of a break, because I know these will change over time. But show them that you can smell the money. All right. So here's, let's see, do I have the whole? There we go. So here's an example from yet another First Look Forum graduate, where essentially this company, Aptitude, was hoping to sort of democratize book publishing, and there's this huge movement towards ebooks, and a lot of authors and publishers sort of get lost in the long tail of apps that are largely ignored. So this entrepreneur was trying to solve that problem, and when it came to making money, he had to break it down into this very basic question: how much is a customer worth? So he did a little bit of math, made some assumptions that you would charge a publisher $500 up front to get their title pushed out through Aptitude, that he would have a 35% revenue share, that books would sell for $10. Any given book title that got published, at the end of the day, you kind of do the math, would be worth about $750. I'll admit that this slide could be a little more elegant, but what you want to do when you're talking about revenue model is your investors should have no doubt in their mind about what is a customer worth. You want to make the math stupid simple for them so that when they get to that hockey stick in your financial projections, they know that if your customer or book or publisher or pair of eyeballs on your website is worth $1,000, they know exactly how many customers you have to acquire to become $1 million company or a $10 million company. So help them believe your story by breaking down the math for them. Okay. There we go. So here is the slide that everybody wants to see and nobody believes. And I will give it a little airtime because it turns out that investors really are hoping to get a return on their investment. If you're working with venture capitalists, for them, there has to be a world in which your company can be acquired for several $100 million or IPO. For angel investors, their appetite's a little different, but they are looking for some multiple of cash-on-cash returns over the lifespan of their investment. And they do that because they're not making perfect bets every time. Usually what happens, out of 10 bets that they make, if they're, if they follow the industry average, one is a home run, they hit a couple doubles and triples, and there's some singles and just walking dead. So they're looking to cover all their other bets. But you need to sell them your vision and show them that there is a universe in which this can happen. And ultimately that happens when the company exits. It is IPOs or acquired by another entity. But in many cases, that is driven by revenues, that is driven by number of users. Anybody in life sciences, medical technologies, devices? Yeah, that's much more of an intellectual property heavy conversation. But for the rest of you, you're going to need to kind of paint a picture of a world in which you and your investors can make a lot of money. So I have found that projecting out, 3 to 5 years is a good mental exercise for you to do. It's important to make sure, just have that gut check with yourself. If it costs you more to acquire customers than any one customer is worth, you probably want to go back to the drawing board. So this is just a good exercise and discipline for you to do yourselves. But what you want to do here is sort of show what the universe could look like over the next few years. Of course, every year out is even, less certain. So you can take yourself with a grain of salt here. But just so investors don't throw the whole thing out of hand, the best thing that you can do on this slide is to share your assumptions. Right? So if I say, all right, I'm Aptitude, and I'm going to acquire 1 million users year 1, and 2 million year 2, and 3 million year 3, and therefore you do the math, this is what our revenues are, at least they know what your assumptions are, and they say, I love you, I think it's an interesting business, but I'm going to sort of do my own mental discounting. I think you're going to maybe get 500,000 customers year 1. And so if you give them your assumptions, then you enable them to do that mental discounting exercise on their own. But if you don't share your thinking, it will look preposterous and they'll just ignore it. So if you do nothing else when you put your projections together, show that you've given some really good thought to the sources of revenue, the sources of costs, and one potential world for your business. One thing I think, a couple techniques that can be really effective is not just sort of showing the dollars and cents of it, but you can label each one with, let's say, you need huge partnerships to go to market. Maybe year 1 you get 1 partnership, year 2 you get 2, et cetera. Go ahead and add data labels to those bars. That can make it even easier. And then I'm thinking about a company that makes gloves that had been making snow gloves for years, and then they were going to go into the golf glove business and the bike glove business after that. What they did is they did kind of a stacked bar chart, right? So they showed every year what the golf glove revenue would be, the snow glove, then the golf, then the bike. And what our investors did is we're like, wow, we really like this snow glove business. Let's just say they don't know what they're doing in golf or bike. We'll just kind of lop off that part of the projections and ask ourselves, is there still a viable business here? And they did. The company's called Propel Gloves, and they're doing great. But again, make the investors' jobs easy. Anticipate those kinds of questions. Answer them for them. Try to do it with graphs and pictures, and you will be well on your way to that second date. All right. So as you may remember from Nick, he kind of had that strong call to action finish, talking about the terms of the deal. I teach a 10-week class in the MBA program at the University of Washington on venture capital investing, and I could spend 10 weeks talking to you about terms, but I'm going to boil it down to just a few seconds for today's purposes. What you want to do when you're speaking to an audience of accredited investors is remind them of where you are. Like in Nick's case, he's a couple $100,000 in towards a $600,000 round, which is great. You want to disclose the terms of that deal. whether it's a convertible debt or equity, you just want to be really clear about that. Here's where people can get a little tripped up. Investors who are worth their salt want to know exactly what you're going to do with their money, right? You're the stewards of their money. So instead of saying, well, we're going to spend 30% on marketing and 25% on staff, don't give them a pie graph like that. What they want to know is what tangible milestones are you going to accomplish with the use of proceeds or with the money that you raise here, that they in turn can hold you accountable to. What they really want to know is if you're raising $1 million, how long is that going to last you? What you'll hear is how much runway is that going to give you? And what are you going to show me at the end of that runway? What have you done? Have you accomplished your goals? And I'll say one of the most popular uses of proceeds that I've seen, and quite legitimately, is building out a team. When you think about management team, probably most of you in the early stages of your business don't have a fully formed team. But you know yourselves well enough that, hey, we're a handful of folks in engineering, and boy, it's time for us to start selling. I'm going to have to hire a VP of business development. So explaining that you're doing that in use of proceeds is a really good way to go. So talk about accomplishments, focus on those next key hires. That's what investors are going to want to know. And just one last quick note. For the companies that come to us, if they might think that all they need is $500,000 and they're going to take over the world. Most investors, if that's what you tell them, they're going to just kind of mentally add in another round of capital. But think hard about what it's going to take to grow your business and turn it into the kind of company that you want to have. So very personal decision there, but something to think about. All right, so I want to manage our time as well as I can. Let's see. In a perfect world, we'd have an even number of people at all of your tables. But what we will do is, so how many of you would absolutely love to have that opportunity to pitch at EU Idol? All right, we've got a handful. Cool. How many of you have business ideas that you really want to help refine? Okay, how many entrepreneurs do we have in the room? That's a trick. Everybody raise your hand. Okay. All right, so what I would like to do is have you work in pairs within your table on an exercise to refine your tagline. I'm going to give you just a few minutes to sort of sit quietly and write down that sort of 30-word initial sentence. And here's what I want you to include in that sentence. Who you are, right? So the name of your company, what you do, for whom, and possibly a little bit about how. So let's see. So GeekWire is a Seattle-based technology news site and online community dedicating to putting Seattle on the map of innovation. So that's a little short, but that's what we're trying to do at GeekWire. So think about kind of what your mission is, whom you're serving, and what that product is that you're serving them with. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to do that. Then you're going to turn to whoever's sitting next to you, and I'll come around and make sure all the pairing kind of works out okay. Turn to whoever's sitting next to you and deliver, read them, share with them your tagline. Now, when you're listening, ask yourself, did they say who they are, what they do, for whom, and how? And if they missed any element, say, okay, I have who you are, but what do you do again? Or they get that and they were like, and who's your market? Just kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, the Socratic method, if you will, and help them refine the tagline, because by answering your question, their tagline will get stronger and stronger. I'm going to give you each a few minutes in that role. Then you're going to keep the same partner and switch roles, all right? So they have just, if you've just gotten done listening, now it's your turn to pitch to your partner, and partner, it's your turn to listen and ask them questions. Just keep drilling down on them. Make sure that they are answering the who they are, what they do, for whom, and how. Because one thing that I will tell you in listening to these 10-minute pitches, the absolute worst thing that can happen, and this has happened in screening committees of investors, is they'll get to the end of a 10-minute presentation, and I'll see this hand slowly raised at the back of the room that says, oh, what do you do again? And that just kills me, because if you learn nothing else, you have got to be able to deliver an effective tagline so people know what business you're in. I find, just having been on the receiving end of hundreds and hundreds of these pitches, that I listen much better if I know what I'm about to listen to. So I've gotten to ends of presentations where I don't know if they're a software company or a call center. And I make all kinds of pretty instantaneous assumptions around what your business is going to look like based on the industry that you're in. So don't be that guy. Don't get to the end of a 10-minute pitch and having mystified your audience about exactly what you do. So let's see if we can't take care of that with a 30-word tagline. Once we get done with that exercise, we're going to have you just quietly pitch around the table. And then as a table, you're each going to elect a representative to pitch in front of the room. I'm going to give you some quick, on-the-fly feedback as time allows. And then, most importantly, by Applause-O-Meter, a very scientific tool that I've developed, we will choose this audience's winner to represent us at EU Idol. Does that sound good? Does anybody have any logistical or other questions before we kind of get into it and roll up our sleeves? All right. Well, get to work. I'm going to give you, I'll sort of play some Jeopardy music in the background, give you a little bit of time to work on your tagline, and then I'll come around and make sure that everybody is paired up effectively. All right. Go team.